The smartest thing Democrats did this year was finding their patriotism again. If you told me a year ago that if Kamala Harris would be the nominee and in her acceptance speech she would use the word privilege, I would not have guessed that she used it the way she did. America's founders, they were the Gen Z of their day. And when they were your age, they started a country. What the f*** have you done?
Bill Maher recently stirred up some serious controversy within the Democratic Party. On his show, Real Time with Bill Maher, he didn't hold back, taking direct aim at party frontrunner Kamala Harris. Maher criticized his own party harshly, claiming that some Democrats are pushing ideas that make young people feel ashamed of being American. He argued that this growing trend is doing more harm than good. His comments hit a nerve. As you'd expect, the reaction from fellow Democrats came fast and strong, with many pushing back hard against his claims. The whole situation has added fuel to an already heated debate within the party. I've pulled together the key clips so you don't miss a thing. Make sure you're subscribed. And let's take a closer look at what's going on.
The smartest thing Democrats did this year was finding their patriotism again. If you told me a year ago that if Kamala Harris would be the nominee and in her acceptance speech she would use the word privilege, I would not have guessed that she used it the way she did.
Bill Maher kicked things off by setting the scene for what he called some hard truths. He started by giving credit where it's due, pointing out that both Kamala Harris and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz have spoken about their love for America. But according to Maher, their message just isn't connecting with younger Democrats. So what's going wrong? Maher didn't leave that question hanging. In typical fashion, he dug into the heart of the issue, arguing that Kamala Harris is a big part of the problem. He suggested that while Harris says the right things, her actions, and, more importantly, her silence on certain issues, send a completely different message. And from there, Maher didn't pull any punches. The next few minutes of his monologue were harsh, direct, and tough to ignore.
Yes, America, the only place in the world where a white guy from the suburbs could become a millionaire rapper, because here every person, regardless of race, class, or gender, has the right to be talent-free. And guess what document allows you to protest and chant, hey, hey, ho, ho, followed by something really stupid? Yeah, Constitution Day was last week. It's an actual federal holiday, but no one noticed, despite the fact that it's probably the greatest legal document ever. Is it flawed? Of course. It was written by humans, and they were all white men, as depicted in this illustration from Google AI.
Now, you might be asking, how do all these examples actually relate to the Democratic Party as a whole? Bill Maher wasn't about to leave that hanging. Instead, he took his time, building his case step by step until he arrived at a striking conclusion. What became obvious early on, according to Maher, is that the older generation of Democrats, whether they meant to or not, has helped create a sense of resentment toward America. And that resentment, he argued, hasn't just faded away. It's been passed down to younger generations, becoming something of a harmful legacy. Maher didn't just hint at this. He connected the dots clearly, in a way that even longtime Democratic supporters would have a hard time ignoring.
But how about looking at the actual ideas in it? I won't hold my breath for that, because only 14% of 8th graders are proficient in history now, and only 22% in civics, which may be why 4 in 10 Gen Zers say the authors of the Constitution are best described as villains.
Maher didn't hold back when he turned his attention to Gen Z Democrats, and to be fair, he made a strong case. While it's easy to point fingers at the older generation for feeding anti-American feelings, Maher made it clear. Gen Z isn't off the hook. He argued that young people today have more access to information than ever before. They've had every opportunity to dig deeper, ask tough questions, and form their own views about the country. But instead, many just went along with the negativity they inherited, repeating what they heard in class or read in headlines without ever really challenging it. But Maher didn't stop there. His next point took aim at the entire Democratic Party. He peeled back the surface and exposed what he believes is the real root of all this frustration and resentment. And when he did, It was a moment that caught just about everyone off guard.
It's amazing, since in 1776, James Monroe was 18. Alexander Hamilton was 21 and James Madison 25. Joe Biden was only 30. America's founders, they were the Gen Z of their day. And when they were your age, they started a country. What the have you done?
There's one thing everyone can agree on. Slavery was a terrible, unforgivable part of history. No one is arguing that. But as Bill Maher pointed out, history isn't as simple as we might like it to be. It's not just a story of good versus evil. It's messy, full of contradictions, and shaped by the values and limits of its time. Yes, our ancestors made serious mistakes, but many were also trying to do the best they could with the knowledge and norms they had. They weren't perfect, not even close. But before we sit in judgment, Maher suggests we turn the mirror on ourselves. With all our education, technology, and moral awareness today, even with tools like AI, we still get things wrong, sometimes in big ways, and often we don't even realize it in the moment. Then Maher delivers a powerful message. Maybe the real threat isn't hiding in the mistakes of the past. Maybe it's in the blind spots we're ignoring right now.
The Constitution isn't perfect because it wasn't written by Taylor Swift, but... and yes, the founders made excruciating compromises, obviously slavery. But slavery was a deal breaker for the southern states. So there would have been two countries. And then to end slavery in North America, it would have involved invading a sovereign nation instead of having the moral high ground of keeping a union together. Would that have been better? History's complicated, and Gen Z reasoning is not. They think they're pure, but they're really just simplistic. They know two things. White people did some very bad things, and no, that's it. That's all they know.
Maher doesn't let up. He keeps the pressure on, delivering one hard-hitting truth after another as he takes aim at what he sees as the growing resentment some activists have toward America's founding figures. He's not just challenging their opinions, he's tearing down the entire narrative. According to Maher, their obsession with moral perfection completely ignores the messy, complicated nature of real history. Then, without missing a beat, he shifts to something even more baffling: how some of these same critics seem to have deep disdain for the U.S. while admiring countries that don't come close to offering the same rights and freedoms. Maher doesn't sugarcoat it. He calls out the double standard directly. Many protesters, he says, are praising nations they've never visited and holding up ideals they barely understand, all while harshly criticizing the one country that actually gives them the freedom to speak out in the first place. And here's the kicker. Maher argues that if these same critics had to spend just 1 week living under the governments they admire, their views would change real fast. But he doesn't stop there. What he says next strips away the final illusion, and it's a wake-up call even his harshest critics might have to think twice about.
Well, I know that too, but I also know other things. Like how in 1776, slavery was a lot like flying private today. If you could afford to, you would have done it too. Everybody did it, of all races, throughout history, in the Bible, and all over the world. If you hate George Washington for slavery, are you prepared to hate the woman king? Because her empire was built on it too. And where do you imagine is this place, outside of your brilliant, pure minds, that's so much better than America? At least America self-corrects, a mechanism for which was actually written into the Constitution.
Whether we like it or not, the freedoms we enjoy today didn't appear out of thin air. They were earned through the blood, sweat, and sacrifice of those who came before us. Our ancestors fought hard, endured real suffering, and in many cases gave their lives so that we could have the right to speak freely, protest without fear, and chase our dreams in a country built on liberty. Their story wasn't perfect, far from it, but to ignore or diminish what they achieved, as some voices in the Democratic Party seem willing to do, is more than just rewriting history. It's a deep insult to the people who made this country possible. It's easy to sit in judgment of the past using today's values. What's harder is recognizing just how difficult the road to progress really was. That's the heart of Bill Maher's argument. If we erase or vilify the very people who laid the foundation for our freedoms, flawed though they were, we risk forgetting the principles they fought for. And once that respect is gone, what comes next could be more dangerous than anything we've seen before. Because here's the truth. No one in this country is starving in the streets. Even our poorest citizens still benefit from a level of stability and opportunity that much of the world can only dream of.
No one starves here. Even our poor people are fat. Not everyone has to be bribed. Anyone can get rich. The cops are flawed, but we're not a police state. The drinks don't make you go blind, and no one pushes you out of a window for a bad Yelp review. Our government takes a lot and fucks up a lot, but it also gives a lot. Healthcare, retirement, money, unemployment, disability, college grants, food stamps. Maybe in the blissfully perspective-free mind, this all adds up to a low bar that America has reached. But you have to ask, why do millions of people every year risk their lives to come here?
All over the world, people are risking everything for a chance to start over in the United States. They work tirelessly, make huge sacrifices, and some even spend their life savings or pay bribes, just for the opportunity to stand on American soil. I've met neighbors from Africa, South America, and other parts of the world who gave up everything. They had to come here. Some now drive cabs, work overnight shifts, or juggle multiple jobs, each one chasing a better future. I've spoken to women who left behind children, husbands, and even successful careers just to come here and clean houses, because even that gave them more hope than what they had back home. For people living under corrupt governments or in collapsed economies, the United States isn't seen as a flawed experiment. It's seen as a lifeline. Sure, it's not perfect. And yes, some people here are quick to focus only on its flaws. But for millions around the globe, America still stands as a place of second chances, freedom, and dignity, earned not by handouts, but through hard work and sacrifice. And that brings us back to Bill Maher's warning. If we keep tearing down the very country that so many risk their lives to reach, we may one day wake up and realize we've destroyed something the world still sees as worth dying for.
Because they want what we got. The founders were flawed, but they did build a place the whole world wants to break into. No one is paying a coyote to smuggle them into India or Russia. Immigrants don't see us as the problem. They see us as the solution. And there's a reason they kill themselves to get here, and it's not just the ponds full of delicious ducks and geese.
One of the most powerful points Bill Maher makes, though it often gets drowned out in the noise, is this. In America, failure isn't final. You can go bankrupt, drop out of school, lose your job, or even start over at 40 and still come back stronger. That kind of resilience isn't just encouraged here, it's built into the way the country works. America was founded on second chances. In many parts of the world, your first failure can define you for life. Your last name, your social class, or who you know can decide your future before you even get a chance to try. But here, you can be born with nothing and still build something. You can start in poverty and end up running a company, buying a home, or even becoming a senator. It's not a perfect system, but the possibility of rising above your circumstances is more real here than in most places on Earth. And yet, ironically, it's often the people who benefit the most from these freedoms who are quickest to criticize them. That's where Maher's deeper warning comes in. If we keep tearing down the very system that gave us the chance to succeed, we shouldn't be surprised when that system stops working. For anyone, including us. His message is simple but powerful. America isn't flawless, but it's still the best shot at freedom, opportunity, and personal reinvention the world has ever seen. From the sacrifices made by past generations to the lengths people go to just to reach this country, the U.S. has earned a respect that's far too easy to forget. And if we keep attacking the very foundation that allows us to speak out, grow, and thrive, we may wake up one day to find that the America we once took for granted no longer exists. That's it for today's video. If this message resonated with you, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more honest, thought-provoking content. Thanks for watching.